The Power of Agile, hosted by Nagarro.
Welcome to The Power of Agile, the show that delves into the world of agile coaching, leadership, and organizational excellence. I'm your host, Gurpreet Badesh, and today's episode is Business Agility, a journey beyond IT. The point being that agile methodology is often associated with IT, but the principles have gradually found their way into various industries and sectors. Now, whilst agile promises increased flexibility, faster delivery, and improved collaboration, we'll be exploring if agile truly is a one-size-fits-all solution. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome Iris-Sabine Bergmann, who is a HR lead here at Nagarro, based in Austria.
Thank you, Gurpreet, and hi everyone. I'm thrilled to be here and share my insights and experiences with you all.
Great stuff. And before we get stuck into this topic, I've got some questions which are more off topic so we can get to know you a little better, if that's okay.
Sure.
Great. So firstly, what's one thing that you've always wanted to try but never actually dared to do so far?
Oh, I would say that's definitely skydiving, but I also know that I really never dared to do it. So I guess it will be my forever always wanted to, but never tried.
It will just stay on your bucket list.
Yes.
You see, it's on my bucket list as well, but I don't think I'm ever going to get around to doing it either. I think like with age, it's just got worse and the fear just keeps growing. And then also somebody told me a fun fact, or not so fun for us actually. It's that it's actually safer to jump out of the plane than to come back down with the pilot.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sounds awful.
So yeah, we'll put that on pause for now. And secondly, which male lie is okay?
Oh my gosh. I think lying is pretty uncool, but if there should be one lie, then it could be you look gorgeous, because it makes me feel good, and I know that there are times when I feel gorgeous. So even if it's a lie for the moment, I know that sometimes it can be true.
Okay, that's a valid one. And thirdly, I'm wondering, as you're the circle lead here at Nagarro, what qualities do you value most about people?
I'd say honesty, talking about lies, integrity, a great sense of humor, and not taking everything too seriously, and especially not oneself.
Yeah, and this is definitely something that runs deep within the Nagarro culture. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, everyone has their character. Thanks for sharing. And now let's get right into our topic. So firstly, what led you to adopt a more agile approach?
I think it started back in 2018 when Nagarro bought Anikon, a company located in Austria focusing on quality assurance. And there were two main pillars we focused on. One was culture, and the other one was the organization as a whole. Actually, we wanted to create a new culture which former Anikon and former Nagarro employees built together and can both identify with. And from the organizational perspective, we wanted to create a new joint organization that enables us to react quickly to technological changes, which makes us future-proof and which is the optimal organizational basis for enterprise agility.
So it seems like it was a really good way to kind of bring the two together and start from scratch almost, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So why do you use agility in the HR department at Nagarro? And more importantly, what are the benefits?
I think it has strengthened the feeling of togetherness. So there is no longer a distinction between who originally came from which company. And from an organizational point of view, we became a highly flexible organization that gives room for employee-driven self-organization and leadership participation, which really everybody was interested in. And all in all, we wanted to become an awesome company, a magnet for customers, and also a magnet for our own employees and candidates outside.
That sounds great. So it seems like, you brought the two companies together, right? You now have this on a day-to-day basis. I'm curious as to how that transition actually went. So, did you get some sort of support, whether that's in the form of like coaching or trainings, and more importantly, do you still get feedback now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had an agile training for all the employees of the what we call the supporting circle, so HR, marketing, IT, finance, etc. And we got familiar with all the buzzwords such as what's the agile manifesto, what are the four principles of being agile, how to make people awesome, what's a Kanban board, a daily, a retrospective, etc. We got familiar with the agile mindset and what this could mean for HR. And most importantly, we had time, or a lot of time in between those mini sessions, to reflect and talk about our findings, our learnings, our trials and errors in the next session, and even had a chance to discuss this or our outcomes with other colleagues from other supporting circles. And so we all got better regarding the topic. And it was funny to observe that the agile vocabularies became suddenly the most important thing in the company back then.
Okay, you had the trainings and the coaching, right? And I guess in some sense this was a brand new way of working, one that was very different to what everyone was previously used to. And you mentioned, right, that you had frameworks, you had the four principles. So which elements did you select from the agile frameworks, and why did you choose those?
Mm-hmm. So, as said before, we tried many different things just to play around with that. We started, for example, to use a Kanban board first electronically. Then we played around with the physical board. We switched back to the electronic one because the pandemic started. Now only a few of our team uses the Kanban board properly. We still use it to highlight tasks, but not to use it for tracking anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We still have our 30 minutes HR daily each day except for Wednesdays. And we also still have our retrospectives. And to answer your second question from before, yes, we still have support. We still work with one of our internal agile coaches who is really awesome and guides the HR team from day one, I would say. We defined our purpose together with him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the one who facilitates our quarterly retrospectives and tries to make us awesome.
So it's a real journey, and he's been there right from the very beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and this is exactly what you need with things like this, right? To make sure that change withstands, whether, like you mentioned, it is the pandemic or any other factors that are influencing that. So yeah, and I'm curious, what impact did you observe in your day-to-day work as a result of these changes that you made, right? With the Kanban board, for example.
Yeah, I think that it all started when we tried to find our purpose together, which really formed us as a team. We became very hands-on, flexible, open for new challenges, and we make all the bigger decisions together now as a team. We also see each other equal from a hierarchical point of view. And this is what makes our HR team excellent, and really it's just a lot of fun to work with everyone and to know what our guiding star is and why we're doing this. So I would say that this was the most important impact we got out of the agile way of working at the beginning.
And these Kanban boards, right, that you mentioned earlier, is that more done in a sense of like prioritization, so you can kind of see which things need to be addressed immediately, which ones can potentially go into the backlog and wait a little while. Is that obviously what you just mentioned, where you said you make the bigger decisions together? Does that kind of act as your guide in making those decisions?
Kind of. I would say we use it to reflect on what we did in the last 3 months. But also we try to set our targets for the next 3 months. And as said before, there are some in our team who use it properly and track everything and use all the different kinds of features. But for most of us, it's just a good overview of what we aim to achieve and what we've already achieved. And then reflect on what could have been better, what worked really well, etc. So it's kind of the basis for our discussions in the retrospective. And yes, also decisions on who is working on which task is something we discuss together as a team, and everyone has the option to volunteer or to take the task which they are most familiar with.
And that's a very common theme across being agile, is making sure that you're involving everyone in that decision-making process. And sometimes you get people that aren't so familiar with that or aren't so comfortable with that. And so with that in mind, what were the challenges that you had along the way? Because you've mentioned how it's completely changed your day-to-day work and everything you do. And now I'm curious to hear the flip side.
Yeah, there were many challenges thinking back. I would say the whole process of the transformation took us all in all more than a year, with many ups and downs, tears and frustration. But we all wanted to become agile and aimed for the same goal, and this made it definitely easier. I thought that we were an agile team after we all had participated in that in-house training, but of course, looking back, that was just the beginning, and that was just a teaser on what it's going to be like in the future. We all had different paces. For some, it was not easy to take over responsibility, to make any decisions. Some were afraid of doing something wrong. Some waited for instructions on how to do certain things, and they just didn't dare to start with anything. So also letting go of thinking about various challenges and obstacles which we might face was very difficult for some team members. And all in all, I would say that the general fear of digging into a total new way of working was our constant companion at that beginning.
You shaping everything, like you mentioned, you don't know what somebody's background is, right? They could have come from a very hierarchical organization where they're used to taking some sort of direction on a day-to-day basis, being told, right, these are the tasks for today, and that's it. And you know, some people get into this realm of working like that, and then you come into somewhere where it's like totally agile, and it's like, whoa, what do I do? I feel a bit lost.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So there was a lot of communication, and as you mentioned, finding out where do people come from, what's their past, what's their usual way of working, what are they used to, and then try to break it in little steps so people can take it easier.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And so what did you notice that changed specifically for HR? Like, did it impact the culture or I mean processes? You kind of touched on that with the Kanban boards.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the agile way of working, we were just perfectly prepared for the A in caring. Caring are our company values, which are extremely important to us Nigerians. And the A stands for agile. So we definitely were prepared for being agile, and we were also able to live up to the N, which stands for non-hierarchical, as we no longer waited for, I don't know, bosses or managing directors or whatsoever to tell us what to do, but we came up with ideas, we came up with initiatives and measures by our own, simply by discussing on a very regular basis what's going on in the organization and by brainstorming what Nagarro in Austria needs from a people and organizational perspective to perform even better. And to sum it up, I would say we became an HR team which simply does not react, but actively steers what's going on in the organization, and can then, or is then, more flexible to react what's going on.
Yeah. So you're more proactive.
Exactly.
Yeah. And caring values are at the heart of everything we do. But could you explain how these values work in Nagarro?
Yeah, absolutely. Caring is our overall company value, which we use a lot in our day-to-day communication, in our way of working, and I would say even in making decisions. And as said before, each letter of the word caring stands for another company value, such as the C for client-centric, the A for agile, the R for responsible. The I is for intelligent, the N for non-hierarchical, and the G is for global. And this is exactly what Nagarro stands for, a client-centric global organization with a non-hierarchical organizational design, where everyone is encouraged to make responsible and intelligent decisions.
And how does caring fit with the values of the Agile manifesto? How is it reflected in Nagarro or HR specifically?
Mm-hmm. I'd say that our client-centric approach absolutely underlines the focus on customer collaboration, which comes from the Agile Manifesto, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And working in HR, which we call people enablement here in Nagarro, our focus is on employees and not on processes or tools. So also the individuals and interactions over processes and tools from the Agile Manifesto. And of course, processes and tools help us support our day-to-day work, but in the end, it's our employees which we focus on, their needs, their well-being, in order to be profitable as an organization. And agility, as said before, supports being able to respond to changes very quickly, to being open for new challenges and obstacles which may arise along the way, and as said before, becoming proactive instead of reactive.
Definitely. And we've touched on agility from an, let's say, team perspective, right, and how it affects the organization as a whole. What role would you say leadership plays in fostering an agile culture, especially in non-IT industries in this case, right? Because I feel like agile has some sort of a basis in IT. That's a given. But in non-IT industries, right? Can leaders support and empower their teams in a specific way so that they can become more agile?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that as a leader in an agile environment, you have to be a role model. You have to lead by example. You have to empower the team. You also have to be a good coach and a supporter for your team. So you always have to be there for them. You have to watch their different paces. I think that one of the main qualities as a leader is to be a good observer, to just realize and see what's going on, not only in my team, but also in the whole organization.
Mm-hmm.
And what worked for us was when we all developed our HR vision, our guiding star together. The step needs to be encouraged and supported by a leader, I think. They have to show what's important to them, and then as a team create the guiding star or the purpose together. I always try to lead by example and demonstrate agile values. I'm trying to remove impediments. I try to create awareness for our agile approaches once we forget it, but also I use the retrospectives for feedback, to address what's not working well or what do I need to improve. I also encourage to make mistakes and then talk about them, because we can all learn from each other. And I think making mistakes is a very important and crucial step or step in a process. So this is, in my perspective, what's important to be as a leader in an agile environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's some great advice you gave here, especially when you mention about making mistakes. It's so important in everything we do. I mean, from childhood, right? Like you have to make the mistakes, you have to fall over to then learn how to walk, and it's like literally that is the process for everything. But it's that's the way we learn.
Exactly. Yeah. I can only agree on that.
So you talk about this guiding star, which tends to lead everything. Could you go into a bit more detail in terms of what exactly this is?
Sure. The guiding star is more or less our purpose. It's our vision, our overall goal, and a summary of why we exist as a team, what we aim to achieve. It's the overall perspective of the HR or people enablement team in Nagarro in Austria. And I would say everything is centered around this guiding star. So all our decisions, all our ideas, everything that comes up is compared to the guiding star. And what we also do on a very regular basis in our quarterly retrospectives is we check the status of our guiding star. And we also constantly adapt it as the organization is changing. Therefore, also our guiding star needs to be changed, needs to be adapted. And with a scale dance, we check where we as an individual, but also we as the whole team are, in order to think of initiatives or measures to get back on track. If we, for example, see that on that scale dance, which is from 1 to 10, whereas 10 is like we totally identify or we totally follow the guiding star. And if we are, for example, just on a 4 as a team, then there is a lot of room for improvement, and then we have to think about initiatives and measures, how to get back on track in order to be at least at a 7, I would say.
Right, so you're quite reflective as a team, and that's of course very agile.
We try to, yes.
Yeah, and it's a really important point that you mention as well about the guiding star and constantly revisiting it and changing it where needed, because quite rightly, goals can, you have to change with the times, with the environment and the external factors that are happening as well. So you have to constantly keep reshaping it, to make sure that it's still ambitious, right? Mm-hmm. And it keeps you going, but B, also just to take into account of these different factors that could impact that, right?
Exactly.
And finally, what are some practical tips that you could offer for our listeners that are beginning their agile journey in non-IT areas, considering factors like organizational culture that we mentioned earlier, resource constraints, or even regulatory requirements?
Yeah, I think I'm not giving any new advice here, because as with every change project in an organization, communication is key, and you can never communicate enough. And when I say it, I really mean it. You can never communicate enough. And besides lots and lots of communication, sharing of information, team discussions, and then observing and watching the different paces of your overall organizational members, but also of the specific teams you're responsible for, their individual needs, and just give enough space to provide lots and lots of space for trial and error. That would be my advice.
Yeah, it's fantastic advice as well. Yeah, you can tell you've dealt with your fair share of challenges.
Thank you. Yeah.
And that concludes this episode. So Iris, thank you so much for sharing insights into how you have adopted elements of agile methodologies into departments across Nagarro.
It's been a pleasure, Gurpreet. I hope our listeners found it useful.
Absolutely. And for our listeners out there, if you've enjoyed the ride, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your feedback means everything to us. Before we part ways, let's recap some key takeaways from today's episode.
I'd say one of my main key takeaways is begin with forming or creating the purpose. Highlight what is important for you as a leader, if you want to use this word here, and then give lots and lots of space to create the purpose together. Second one is observation. Observe what your team members need on an individual basis, but also as a team in order to be able to observe what the whole organization needs. And then communication in the form of being a role model and talk about your own findings, your own mistakes, and your own challenges. Open up, which enables you as a team to trust each other. And also communication in the form of information, which can be discussed and is the basis for empowering your team to make their own decisions. And also in the form of giving room for learnings when someone makes a wrong decision or a mistake. That would be my key takeaways.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, so I also think the making mistakes is a huge one, right? It's something that shouldn't be discouraged because naturally that's the way we learn, right? So we need to kind of make the mistakes to know not to do it like that again, right? And this is where it fits in with the whole reflective process that you also mentioned earlier, where you have your stand-ups and you reflect on what went well, what didn't go so well, and how it could potentially be changed. The second thing would be breaking things down into these bite-sized chunks, right? So you mentioned you had the guiding star, which is the overall vision, but then it's so important to kind of have the smaller steps so the team is able to shape the way in which they get to that overall goal, right? It means that they're more bought into it as well. So I think those are the two key takeaways that I just want to add. Thank you once again, Iris, for your great insights, and to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. I hope you feel inspired and gain some impulses for your own agile journey. And if you have any questions, please send an email to aqt@nagarro.com or connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you've missed some previous episodes of our podcast, check out The Power of Agile on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on the Nagarro website.